Little did Ramsay MacDonald know, this day in 1924 would tilt the balance of British democracy. It was late October, 4 days before a general election, when a single, explosive document landed on the editorial desk of the Daily Mail and then rippled through Parliament, the press, and the drawing rooms of London. To understand why a letter mattered so much, you need the Europe of 1924, a continent reshaped by war, revolution, and fear. The Bolshevik seizure of power in Russia 5 years earlier had sent shockwaves across capitals. Western governments watched Moscow with mistrust. British elites feared subversion at home. Ramsay MacDonald led Britain's first Labour government, a fragile minority facing accusations that any accommodation with Russia would mean Britain was soft on communism. The document published on October 25th bore the signature of Grigory Zinoviev, head of the Communist International in Moscow. It purported to instruct British communists to forge links with trade unions and foment agitation, even hinting at the need to undermine the British armed forces and swell revolutionary fervor. The headline writers had a feast. The conservatives and much of the press treated the letter as proof that Labour and Moscow were conspirators. The timing could not have been crueler. Election fever was already high. Accusations of disloyalty and calls for national security dominated debates. The letter's sudden appearance became the political equivalent of a bomb. It was waved in the House of Commons, quoted verbatim in newspapers, and replayed in street corner conversations. Voters who feared Bolshevism at home were persuaded by the suggestion that a Labour government might be enthralled to Moscow. Within days, the Conservatives swept to power in a decisive victory. Labour's fragile coalition collapsed, and Ramsay MacDonald found his premiership snatched away. But the document's aftershocks proved less tidy than the press frenzy had promised. Questions surfaced almost immediately about provenance and authenticity. The Soviet government denied sending it. The Labour Party demanded an inquiry. Some senior civil servants privately warned that the letter's origins were sketchy. Over the following decades, historians pieced together a very different story. The Zinoviev letter was not a genuine dispatch from Moscow. It was a forgery, concocted by anti-Bolshevik networks who saw political advantage in unmasking or inventing links between British Labour and the Soviet Union. Evidence assembled after the Cold War showed the provenance passed through white Russian émigré circles and anti-communist intermediaries in Europe before being placed with a willing, sensationalist press in London. Crucially, the forgery was effective because it exploited existing fears and institutional failures. Editors did not verify. Political operatives circulated the document without forensic checks. Opponents of the government seized on it as gospel. The short-term consequence was tangible, an election result altered by disinformation. The longer-term legacy was deeper and murkier, a political culture in which anonymous leaks, forged papers, and intelligence fragments could be weaponized in public life. The truth took generations to be fully acknowledged. For decades, Soviet and Western narratives collided and obfuscated. Only after archives opened and scholars re-examined files did the consensus form. The Zinoviev letter was a fabrication, a political sting dressed up as diplomacy. Yet no single author was ever definitively proved. The forgery's architects remained a shadowy coalition of émigrés, suspicious intelligence actors, and opportunistic journalists. The Zinoviev affair endures as a cautionary tale. It shows how a manufactured document, landing at the right moment, can reshape an election, discredit a government, and alter history. For Ramsay MacDonald and the millions of Britons who voted in 1924, the immediate consequence was lost power. For historians and democracies since, the lesson is sharper. In an atmosphere of fear, even a false paper can become truth. And once that happens, the consequences can echo for generations.